Hello, everyone. I'll wait till let's get our interpreter pinned right here. There we go. Add a spotlight. Perfect. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hollywood Fringe Accessibility Panel. I am super excited about this. This is one of our favorite panels that we have because theater is the lifeblood of our society, and it's important that it is accessible, and accessibility makes things better for all people. So I'm really, really excited. And before we get started, just as always, we are going to go through some housekeeping and things that are coming up, events, and things to consider as we start to inch towards the Hollywood Fringe Festival, which is unbelievably like 2-3 months away. So let's dive in. This is a space. First off, I actually wanted to acknowledge that this is being live streamed and we are recording this to be placed on YouTube later. So please just know that. And if at any time you want to take action that makes you feel more comfortable, please do so. That includes getting up to drink water, get coffee, anything that you need or your body needs during this time is for you to do. This is a safe and inclusive space. We would like to ask everybody that's present in the room with us to please rename yourself with your name that you would like to include, and then any pronouns that you have that you would like to be referred with. We've started the practice of adding pronouns so that our space is inclusive for everybody that joins us. And before we begin, I just want to do a land acknowledgement, which is a formal statement that recognizes and honors the indigenous peoples of the land that we presently reside and work on. The Hollywood Fringe acknowledges that we are on the unceded lands of the Tongva, Quiche, Gabrielinos, and Gabrielenos lands. Our statement serves as a practice as we commit to furthering our connection to the indigenous communities, both past, present, and also emerging. So if you have, during this time, if you have any accessibility needs that aren't being met, please don't hesitate to reach out to a member of our staff. That is going to be myself or Carly, as you can see on their names, Carly and Wiley as well. And we will make sure to accommodate you in any way that you must need. And for any event that we have, you can always you can always request accommodations for interpretation or any other services 72 hours in advance of any event. We do have one here today, and we have them at all of our in-person events. But if you ever need any accommodations, please let us know, and we'll reach back out to you when you email support@hollywoodfringe.org. We're having fun here. This is all, Zoom and streaming land, and we're still kind of learning how to do this, even though it's been a little while, but technical difficulties sometimes happen. So if you have technical difficulties and you're not sure how to fix them, you can also you can also message us here in the chat and we can help you through your technical difficulties, or if we have them, just bear with us while we try and make everything work. Awesome. So let's talk about the upcoming events that are happening very, very, very quickly as we approach Fringe. So tons of educational and networking opportunities are coming up. All of our events are listed on the news tab on our website at www.hollywoodfringe.org/news. Carly's going to go ahead and drop that into the chat so you can add that to your favorites on your browser. Our town halls are all hybrid, in person and live streamed and recorded and saved onto YouTube. These are our informational sessions where our co-directors Lois and Ellen will give the download on everything Fringe and how to have a really successful Fringe. Our workshops and panels like this one are all on Zoom and Facebook Live, except for the Festival Expectations one, which will be in person. And this is where you will hear from experienced Fringe veterans and award winners and theater professionals who have all the download on how to have a successful Fringe. I highly recommend you all come to these because it will change your experience at Fringe in the most positive and stunning way. Our town halls, which we've already had one, and that is currently up on YouTube. If you missed it, please go check that out because it will once again give you all of the information that you need to know in order to have a successful Fringe experience. And then we'll have another one right before Fringe begins, and that's going to be in person, and it's the prepping for Fringe one. And that one's huge because that's where you're going to be like able to ask all the questions that you need that are burning in your minds right before we go into openings. So it's really fun town hall with lots and lots of energy. Yeah, and so this workshop that we're in right now is the accessibility workshop. Upcoming at the end of the month, we have a marketing and ticketing workshop, and that is where you are going to get all of the information from our experts on from our Fringe veterans, on how to market your show in different creative ways. We'll have people with different strategies on, so it's going to be a really great panel to give you some ideas on how to have a sold out house. And it's also going to go over ticketing, where we'll talk about how the ticketing system works, comps, discounts, all of those kinds of things that I'm sure you're already starting to think about. Then after that, we'll have our How to Tech Your Fringe show, and that is going to be with a panel of extremely talented veteran stage managers and technicians that work in our Hollywood Fringe venues, and they are just, I learn something new every time I even sit in the workshop. So I highly recommend come to that one. It's a really good one. And then our final one is going to be Festival Expectations. And once again, that will be with Ellen and Lois, where we get the download on how to do Fringe and have a blast. We have some virtual web sessions, and these are going to teach you how to navigate our platform for everything that you need to know for the Hollywood Fringe site. So that's going to be how to manage your ticket sales like digitally, so that you're not lost. And you can always go back and look at that on YouTube if you're like, hey, how do I make a comp code? That's where you're going to learn that information there. And that one, the ticketing and messaging and will call inside of the Hollywood Fringe site is going to be coming up in May. So keep an eye out for that one. And then I'd also like to propose that if you are looking to do Fringe, if you are signing up and you register your project, you're already going to be added to our newsletter. But if you're not added to our newsletter yet, or you haven't registered yet, go ahead and go to the hollywoodfringe.org and sign up for our newsletter, because that's where you'll hear all of the information about our upcoming workshops, networking opportunities, and all of the information that I'm telling you now will be coming to you as the stuff comes up. So you'll be able to always be in the know. If you're new to the Hollywood Fringe community and want to learn more about participation, you can also check out the Artist Resources tabs on the top right corner of our website. And that will have we call it our supportal. It has articles about everything that has ever been asked. So you can always check out there and get some help. And if you need further assistance, you can always email support@hollywoodfringe.org, and we will get back to you as quickly as we can. It's amazing. We're open source and really supportive. So if you ever need any help, don't hesitate to reach out. Some important festival dates and deadlines that are coming up. I kind of want to go through a list real quick and just talk about these. So February 1st is when registration opens. So it is currently open. So if you have your show and it's burning in your soul, go ahead and register now. The registration deadline to be included in the guide. So every year we get a printed guide of all of the Hollywood Fringe shows. That deadline is going to be April 1st to register and be included inside of the guide. So you want to make sure if you want to do the Hollywood Fringe and you want to be included in the guide, that you hit that April 1st deadline. Then on April 10th, we're going to have our guide ads deadline. So if you want to put an ad in for your show or even your own business or XYZ, please make sure that you have all of that ready by April 10th. So the guide ads deadline will be April 10th. Then this one is my favorite one. It is on May 1st, and it is when tickets go on sale for the Hollywood Fringe Festival. And it is an exciting time where you put all of this pre-work in to make your show and do the thing, and then you get to share it out to the world and start getting people to buy tickets, and it's just such a great time. And then this is obviously my equally first favorite one. From June 1st to June 6th is the previews for the Hollywood Fringe Festival shows. So during that week, that's your time to test things out and get an audience, get press, get people to come and see the show and get your feet wet before we jump into the wild nature that is what we call summer camp for adult theater artists. It's a great time. And then June 7th is our opening night party. There will be no shows scheduled that time. So make sure you come out and get ready to celebrate what we're about to do. And that's a month long of just theater in June. And then June 8th through the 25th are the Hollywood Fringe Festival dates. So shows will be running from the 8th to the 25th. And it's a great time, once again, lots of theater. And June 25th is the awards and closing night party. That's where we will do the Freak Awards, and we'll have a panel on what that means later, and just celebrate all of the fantastic theater that we've done. Awesome. That covers just about all of the upcoming dates and things that you want to know and how to engage with Fringe. Next, I'd like to talk a little bit about our code of conduct and our community ethos. At Fringe, we don't have a lot of rules, but we do take our code of conduct and community ethos very seriously. And if you're registered as a project, you and your team will be held accountable for the actions of yourself and your cast and crew as you participate within our festival. And that, of course, also applies to any digital spaces like this event that we're in right now. The Hollywood Fringe is committed to creating an inclusive environment in support of all of our participants. This festival is built on the freedom of expression and a lack of censorship, which means we have to maintain the utmost respect for each other and create a safe space to take risks with our work. So we ask that you treat each other with love and compassion. And the following things are just no-goes. They're not allowed within our community. And that includes microaggressions, verbal and physical intimidation, hate speech, harassment, sexual harassment and assault, excessive consumption of alcohol or other legal substances, aggressive behavior. And as you start to navigate the festival, we want you to be mindful of your intention versus your impact, right? I might have good intentions with something that I do, something that I say, but my impact is just as, if not more important than my intention. So be kind, be respectful, and think about what you're doing as you're doing it. It's a workplace, right? We're all here doing professional theater, so consider it like you're in a professional theater, because that's what this festival is. And then also consider public versus private interactions. So there might be some things that are appropriate with you and your buddies that are not appropriate outside or can be misconstrued. So just keep that in mind, and remember, we're all professional theater artists making our art and taking risks, and we want to do that in a safe space. If a member of the Fringe staff comes to you with a complaint at any time, please take it seriously. If our code of conduct is not followed, your time at Fringe can come to an end. And if you witness or experience any of the above that we've talked about, please do not hesitate to report it to any present Fringe staff member as soon as possible, or email email conduct@hollywoodfringe.org. And when we're on site, you'll be able to see us and recognize us by our little badges that we all carry around. So yeah, thank you in advance for honoring our code of conduct and helping us make this a safe space and respecting our community that we've so strongly developed. And then finally, just once again, make sure you're signed up for the Fringe newsletters, because that's where you're going to get all of the information of the things that I'm talking about right now and stay up to date. Follow us on social media. We have TikTok, Instagram, and go ahead and give us a like on Facebook, because that's also where we stream a lot of our events. And so you'll be able to see everything as they come up. And then as you're doing the festival and posting on social media, please use the hashtag HFF23. Again, that's hashtag HFF23. And then I'm going to say it again, just so that you know that it's there. We are here to support you. Email support@hollywoodfringe.org with any questions as you move along and go through the festival. And then lastly, these are some networking opportunities that are coming up really soon. So just go ahead and mark these in your calendars and get ready, because Fringe is about to go into full swing, and June is going to be here before you know it. And it's time to start making those connections. Our weekly office hours are going to resume Wednesday, March 29th. So that is this month. Our first 2 office hours will be at the Broadwater Plunge, and this is going to be an opportunity to meet your fellow Fringers, network, make friends, and also ask any questions that you may have of staff members in person, and also of the Fringe veterans who frequent the Hollywood Fringe office hours. So again, that's Wednesday, March 29th. Please come to that. We can't wait to see your faces. And from there, it's every Wednesday after that. So you'll always know. And if you signed up for the newsletter, you'll know where they'll be. Sweet. And then our speed networking and online events are coming up here very quickly. So keep an eye out for our speed networking digital events that we're going to be having. So not all of our networking events are in person. We also have some that are digital, and they're really fun. Little, like, we make it really fun. Like, you talk to somebody and then we switch you and you talk to another person. It's super cool. The first one is going to be Thursday, 4/20. I wrote the numbers, and so I don't know the actual days that attach to them. I'm so sorry. It's 4/20, and it's going to be at 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. The next one is going to be Monday, 5/1. That's going to be 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. And then the last one will be Monday, 5/22, again from 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. So keep an eye out for those. And without further ado, I have talked long enough. I would love to introduce my incredible friends and panelists that are here to talk to us tonight. So Wiley, Amanda, Jeff, Diana, come on up. Hello, Wiley.
Hi, Kevin. Thank you so much for the introduction. I'll let our panelists go first, and then I'll introduce myself. Diana, do you want to start us off?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. I'm Diana Elizabeth Gordon. My pronouns are she, her, and my visual image description. I'm a Black woman with naturally curly hair. I have on a brown jacket and pink shirt, and my background, very special tonight. The woman you see is Judith Helen. She's a real. She has on a red jacket, white shirt, wheelchair user. Judith Helen is considered the mother of the civil rights movement, the disability civil rights movement. She recently passed, and I wanted on Saturday. Her service was today, and I felt appropriate to have her because I believe the reason we're having these conversations now is because of the work Judy dedicated her life to. And then I got to meet her a couple of times. She was an incredible woman. But I really do think, again, the reason we're having these athletic conversations is because people like Judy paved the way for us to have them. And just to my other side, this is a disability pride flag, which is relatively new, but it's the Black background, which stands for all the people with disabilities who've lost their lives, the tragedy, neglect, and then the red stripe, a yellow stripe, a white stripe, a green stripe, and a blue stripe. Those are for the intersectional, how intersectional disability is. So red is for physical disability, yellow is for cognitive, white is for invisible and non-apparent disabilities, blue is for mental health disabilities, and green is for sensory disabilities. But I want to share that because for many of us, disability is a cultural identity, one of our cultural identities, and I really wanted to share that in this space today. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Diana. Jeff, do you want to go next?
Hello, thank you. My name is Jeff Peterson. He, him pronouns, please. I am a white man. I have brown hair with a natural white plume of hair right in the front. I'm wearing a green hoodie tonight. I'm coming to you from Simi-Imikan, the traditional homelands of the Nimipu Nez Perce tribe. I'm here in Idaho, maybe the farthest panelist here tonight. So happy to be here. Let's see. I have a background. I've worked in special needs classrooms. I worked as a psychosocial rehab therapist for years. I have background training in counseling. And I'm also a theater artist. I'm an actor and a playwright and a director. And Kevin invited me here. I've known him for almost 10 years, which seems really impossible, but it's great. My primary work specific with accessibility is with playwriting and also as a director. So thank you very much.
Marvelous. Happy to have you here, Jeff. Amanda.
Hello. Hopefully my internet stays stable. I am Amanda Lynn. I am a she, her kind of gal. Totally happy if it's a they, them. I am a white female with shoulder length brown hair. I'm wearing a black and yellow plaid number with some gold chains. I love Fringe, and I'm so happy to be here and be part of this. My sort of lived experience is one as a fat person and what those accessibility needs are for myself. For Fringe, you can see behind me, there is a Fringe poster from my Hollywood Fringe 22 show. So produced, wrote, and starred in. And I am sharing with permission that I am the mother of an autistic person so I have a lot of experience with also some sensory needs, and happy to assist in any way that I can.
Fabulous. Thank you so much. My name is Wiley Jones. I use he, they pronouns, and I'm fair-skinned, blue-eyed person with luscious blonde hair, a little bit of a beard, and a cream colored shirt with like abstract gray and brown dots on it. And I am on staff with the Hollywood Fringe Festival, and I want to say a welcome to everyone who's joining us on the live stream, everyone who is watching this later. We're really happy to have you here thinking about accessibility as you're planning out your shows for the 2023 Fringe Festival. 2023, yep, that's right. Fringe Festival. So today what we're talking about is, how do you start? Where do you begin to have this conversation with yourself or with your team about accessibility? On the Hollywood Fringe side, we are committed to increasing accessibility for audience members of all abilities and backgrounds. And we are a non-curated festival that's primarily volunteer run. So it's a lot on the individual producers to figure out the access needs of their audience and what they are able to provide. We offer educational workshops like this, in addition to accessibility features for our own events. But again, and it's the same thing, it's every venue and show has its own unique conditions. And that's why we really rely on our producers and try to support them as much as possible to meet their audience access needs. So I'm gonna go through and define a couple of things right now. And one of them is access needs. And one of that is anything that your audience members need to engage with and experience your production. And we offer a service that through the ticketing portion of our website, where patrons can put in personal accessibility requests. If there's something that they're like, I know this is unique to me, then they can put that in writing and that will be sent straight to you as the producer. Some of the common ones that we get a lot are, hey, I would like some brighter house lighting while we're doing seating, or I want a large print or a screen-friendly reader of the marketing materials, programs, or even I want a copy of the script beforehand so I can really engage with this material. Sometimes it's specific seating requests that they're like, I want to be closer to the stage, or they want to be further away, close to an exit, whatever that is, all of that can be communicated with you. You, as the producer, you will also have the opportunity to communicate with your audience. And we highly recommend that 24 hours before, well, two things. First of all, beforehand. We recommend that you put all the information about accessibility regarding your show on your site, on your project page. And then 24 hours before audiences come to your show, you can send out a message to them and you can say, hey, here is updated information. Here's how you'll find the box office. Here's who you can contact on the day of if you had a personal accessibility request, or if there's an access need that's not being met. This is our plan for how that will be handled. So it's thinking about what your audience experience is, and that starts from the box office. A lot of times, because shows are stacked at the festival, your audience will be waiting outside while you churn over shows. So think about, is there some place where they can comfortably wait as possible as it is at your venue? Is there shade if people don't want to be? It's hot in the summer, y'all. If there's somewhere where people can be waiting that's like in the shade, that's always nice. So show accessibility flags. This is a new feature this year. I am so excited about it. And it's actually going to be launching. It's not yet live on our website, but it will be launching very soon. And we will send out a notification to all of our participants when it does. Pretty much what this is audience members can search by accessibility features for each show. So if there's someone who knows, I need to have wheelchair accessible seating, they can click the little box that says wheelchair accessible seating, and they can see all the shows that accommodate that. So we're going to go through them right now and talk about what they mean. So starting with relaxed environment, sensory-friendly performances. If this is something that you're able and willing to offer, these are performances with slight adjustments that are being made to any jarring sounds or intense lighting or projection effects. Usually house lighting will be up, and it's more of a comfortable thing where audience members, if they need to take a break from the show, can leave, or if it's an audience that wants to be more vocal, that is permitted, and it's a safe space for that. The next one is live American Sign Language interpreted performances. We have our wonderful interpreter right here. Hi. And so that's something that you can find resources through our website, hollywoodfringe.org/accessibility. And this is something that you're going to need to think through. Is it going to be at every performance? If we're going to offer it, is it only going to be at one? Depending on the length of your show, it's exhausting to be translating for someone for a long period of time. I mean, I'm trying to slow down so I'm not overwhelming our interpreter right now. And so it's a conversation that you need to have with the interpreters. Also, if you're bringing people into your cast or your production crew, make sure that these resources are available for them as well. Next up is captioning. So there are two types of captioning: open captions and closed caption. Open caption is going to be the most universally recognized within theater, as it's done a lot of times with projections onto the wall of a theater or above the stage, marking out all of the stuff that people are saying, any sort of sound cues, anything that's being sung. But there is also closed captioning, which, for instance, if you're joining us on the live stream, is captioning that you can turn on and off. In a theater setting, there are some apps that are being developed that offer closed captioning. If this is something that you utilize, tell everyone on your team, tell your performers, tell your box office, hey, there are people coming in who may have their phones in the audience and may be looking at them. It's fine, they're looking at captions. So the next is primarily visual performance and primarily sound-based performance. These are shows that can be understood and engaged with and experienced with only either the visual elements or the auditory elements. For some people, there are a lot of interesting shows that I've seen that I'm like, there was nothing said, there was no sound element that was going on through it. It was all the visuals. And for some people, that makes it very accessible for them. So this is just letting those people know, hey, you're welcome. Next is audio descriptions available. These are either live or pre-recorded narration of what's happening on stage. Again, this is something that can be done through a mobile device and an earpiece, or it's something that can happen live in the room for everyone to hear. Next, we have our mask required during performances and proof of COVID-19 vaccination required. As a festival as a whole, we don't have any requirements this year, but because there are immunocompromised people or people with immunocompromised people in their lives, we want these flags to be out there both for our producers and for our audience members. So if this is something you want, a practice that you want to uphold with your production, then these flags are for you. Next, we're moving into some sensory flags. Flashing lights, smoke and haze. If these are things that you utilize in your production, great, go for it. Just mark this box so that our audience members can know ahead of time before purchasing tickets that this is something that will be happening, and also post that outside of the theater for people who are walking in so that no one is surprised. There's also this sensory advisory box that if you mark it, then you are saying, on my project page, I'm going to put a sensory advisory that says any information like there are flashing lights, there are flashing projections, there are smoke and haze, or I've heard of productions that utilize smells to really get their audience in the environment. That is something that can be very overwhelming for certain people. So letting them know ahead of time is great. Next is content warning. This is same idea where if you're marking this box, you're saying on my project page, there is a written chunk that says content warning that explains any sort of potentially triggering content that may be a part of this performance, whether that be violence, hateful language, conversations around eating disorder, self-harm, animal cruelty, blood, sexual situations. And even if your show is specifically family friendly, I still say, write a content warning that says, this show is family friendly. There are none of these themes in it. That is valuable information for audience members who are coming to your show. The next, offering tactile preview tours. This is for people with low to no vision. It gives them a way, instead of just coming to your show and sitting there and having to imagine, what does the set look like? What does the space look like? What are the characters wearing? This is your opportunity to invite those audience members in and say, hey, let's walk around the space. Let's describe it. Let's take time to talk about the actions in the play that are happening. Let's talk about what are the costumes look like, what are the materials, all of that stuff that us who can fully see don't think about, that we can get that information very quickly. This is offering the opportunity to sit down and share that information. The next priority, early access seating. It's the same as an airplane when they say, hey, if anyone needs extra time getting to their seats, you have it. And this is the same thing that before your general admission, you just go out to your audience and say, hey, if there's anyone who needs a little extra time for whatever reason, this is your time. The next one is live streaming performances. A great way to make your show accessible. Live stream it. So we have a flag for that. And then we move on to, those are all of the flags that you as a producer control for your show. On the venue side, they have a couple of flags as well. They have size inclusive seating. If your venue marks this, then they will go into more detail on their page and about what type of seating options are available. They will put on-site ADA compliant restrooms if that's something they have, wheelchair accessible seating, and assisted listening devices available. Make sure you communicate with your venue that if they, for instance, mark that they have assisted listening devices available, that you as the producer know where they are, how to operate them. And so if an audience member comes, that you are ready to offer those services that you're advertising through the website. Beautiful. So we have an accessibility checklist here at the festival. It is 5 steps to help you think through how can you apply these flags to your production and make it as accessible as possible. So step number 1, go through the list that I just gave you that can be found on hollywoodfringe.org/accessibility and mark each of the flags once they're live on a website for your production. Any and all of them that apply to your production and that you want to incorporate into the run of your show, or maybe practices that you're probably already doing. This way you can just communicate those to your audience. Next, step 2, go to your project page and provide more of that immediate information for how, for content warnings, sensory advisories, how patrons will find the box office on the day of the show, and who they can contact on that day of the performance regarding any of those personal accessibility requests. Number 3, confirm with your venue that their accessibility flags are up to date and accurate for your performances specifically. And number 4, there's a form that Carly is going to drop in the chat, and that can be found again on our website, hollywoodfringe.org/accessibility, that you can fill out to register with us that, hey, I've done all these steps. I am doing everything that I can to make my show as accessible as possible so that we can continue to outreach and try to grow your audience from the point of accessibility. Number 5, last step, ensure that your performance, box office staff, production crew, everyone in the building knows your accessibility plans. So your performers know what they can expect coming into rehearsals. Your box office knows how to accommodate anything that you may have promised through our website or through your project page. And finally, how to add accessibility flags. This is the part of the live stream that you might want to revisit once these flags are live. You will go to your project page, and under the admin tab, you can click edit performance. And that is where you will go through and check each of the accessibility flags that apply to that performance. Now, it is very important that you update each performance separately, because like if you check content warning on only one performance, it will only show up for that one performance. Whereas it's something that if you provide it, you're providing it for all of your performances. So you want to make sure that all of your performances are marked. This is also a great way to let audience know that, yes, I have an ASL interpreter, but I only have it for this performance. So again, all of that information can be found on hollywoodfringe.org/accessibility. And if you have any questions or need any support, you can always contact us at hollywoodfringe.org, support@hollywoodfringe.org. So with all that being said, I'd like to bring back up our panelist and talk a little bit about what what accessibility means to them. So I want to start by asking everyone, what do you think is important for audiences to know prior to purchasing tickets for a performance or prior to attending a performance so that they can feel like their access needs will be met?
Well, yeah, to me, it's just, excuse me, for me, it would be knowing what my access needs are, and then making sure that venue, for example, maybe the theater's at the top of a staircase. So if it's challenging for me to climb stairs, or even if I'm not able to because I use a wheelchair, then those are things I need to know. If I'm going to purchase a ticket, I need to know that that I'll be able to go to the show. So I just want to say quickly, in terms of financial contribution, the disability community as a whole is spending about $500 billion. That's half. None of that is my money, but it's about $500 billion. So there's a big financial incentive to have accessibility in your, as part of your mandate, to make it accessible for everyone, because that allows you to recoup your investment that you're making in the show. So it makes business sense to be accessible.
Absolutely. Yeah, Jeff.
I would add that I think as theater makers, a lot of us are really excited about big lights and big sounds. But I think making sure that we are letting our audiences be aware that there will be intense lights, intense sounds included in a show for the vast majority of the population. Those are things that come at them, and there's no issue whatsoever. But we will have sensory sensitive, sensory avoiding folks who will be in our audiences. And I don't think any of us want to chase our audiences away. We don't want them leaving with a terrible experience because of the lights and the sound that we used. So letting them know that these are things that they may encounter, because maybe they could come and see your show and enjoy it and bring headphones. I almost always carry earplugs and headphones with me because I want to make sure that audience members will, be prepared that if something like this happens. So yeah, be aware that there are people out there who need to know these things.
Yeah, I agree. I think having as much information as possible on your show page at Hollywood Fringe is really valuable. I spend a great deal of time researching. I try to find photos of what the chairs look like in the audience, because I can't sit in a traditional theater chair. And just this last weekend, I thought I had done my research, and I had seen pictures of bench seating in the audience. And when I showed up, all those bench seats were gone, and it was traditional seating. And then at the last minute, I'm scrambling with the house and the writer and the producer, all trying to find seats. And we almost had to leave until we finally found a solution right at the last moment. But that's stressful for them trying to accommodate me in the moment. It's stressful for me because I'm disappointed and frustrated that, I spent the time that I spent. So yeah, in terms of accommodating seating, for me to have that information ahead, if I know that there's going to be something, or if I need to try to request that, that's invaluable. And in terms of the sensory stuff, I mean, Jeff, you just nailed it. Just let your audience know, so they know themselves best and their own needs well. So if they have an idea of what they're going to be facing, they can make the their own accommodations or request things of the production team to make it safe and joyful for them.
Yeah. I wanted to go off that and ask, when there are limitations in the space, like Diana, you're talking about, there are theaters that are at the top of stairways. That can be a hard thing for producers to be faced with. How do you handle those limitations?
That's a really good question, because a part of it is we live we live relatively and are able to think in an accessible world. The community was not built with the universal design in mind. And that's just a fact that, I talk about ability privilege a lot, and I don't think we realize, just like white privilege or gender privilege, size privilege, ability privilege is something that many people don't recognize we have. So that's a really good question. I think how you start at the top is to say we are going to find an accessible space to do our show. That has to be, when you sit down with the production team, what are your priorities? When I produced a couple of years ago, my priority was to find a accessible space to producing, because they are out there. Looking at alternatives, that can you do it at a place that's, the great thing about the Fringe is it's on the Fringe. So do you have to do it in a traditional theater space? Maybe you do, maybe you don't. I mean, especially a solo show. Can you do it in a grocery store? I don't know. But what are some of the alternative spaces that might be accessible? Are there, and that again starts with doing your research. That's all part of your pre-production and preparation. Is there an accessible space where I can create or do my show? But that starts, like I said at the very beginning, they're out there, but it's just the research to find it.
Yeah,
I'd love to add to that if I could.
please.
When I was choosing when my partner and I were choosing our venue, it was important to us that it was a fat-friendly venue. So then it was important to us that there was seating for people who were like me, who were going to be seeing our show. And while we were open to traditional seating, it was only if there's space to add more friendly options in the front, or will that take up the valuable stage space. And so yeah, you just absolutely nailed it. You really have to just be thoughtful about it as you're choosing your venues. And if they're already chosen and now this is like you're watching this later, that's okay. Figure out ways where you can make it as accessible to as many people as you can. And there will be limitations because like you said, this world wasn't designed for everyone. But it's so appreciated when we make the effort, when the shows make the effort to make whatever can be done to make you feel welcome, to get you in the show. I mean, it's huge. So do what you can and do it with love, and the rest will work itself out.
Yeah, truly, this idea of creative problem solving when it comes to these limitations, and also just thinking from somebody else's point of view, that somebody doesn't show up and go, no one has thought about how I might experience this before. That really is not a very nice feeling. And it's something that we can really just eliminate by thinking through each step of our process. What about in terms of casting and bringing on the rest of your team? How are you thinking about making the experience for everyone as accessible as possible, not just the audience?
same stuff. For me, for our show, we purchased additional seating because we knew that the seats that were available with the theater that we had rented weren't comfortable, they weren't strong, they weren't sturdy, they just weren't going to cut it. So we made sure we brought those with us. And it was great to know that we had a space that was wheelchair friendly. The things that we could think of in advance and foresee, that was both for the audience and for the participants. It's all the same place of thoughtfulness, and ask your friends who have different abilities or who are different than you, like, what are my blind spots? Not you go do this, but let's go do this. Let's link arms and you be strong and smart where I am weak. And together we can make this a great place for as many people with as many abilities as possible.
I would also add that in the casting of this and understanding how a production can happen, it sometimes takes a certain amount of rethinking your aesthetic. I think that there are long traditions in theater, in ballet, in movements that look at a very specific type of body, that looks at a very specific type of movement, that looks at a very specific type of ability, that is not accessible, not welcoming whatsoever. So instead of trying to fit everyone in your cast to your aesthetic, find out what your cast can do and what your cast can fit. I myself have come against directors that have said things like, I can't have you in this show because of the way you move around the stage. That for me, I think, as a director, is my call to action. That my idea as a director is if it is leaving people out of this, the picture, leaving people out of this experience in this performance, then I need to rethink the way I'm doing things. So I really would encourage people to think about how you can be as equitable in your casting and as accessible to create these shows that are full of beauty and that capture what you want with as many people as you can. So
I'd like to add to that. I read a couple years ago, and this is more of a movie, but it's to my point. There, a few years ago, before they made the Harriet with Cynthia Erivo, there was another talk of making Harriet, and this is a true article. There was talk about casting Julia Roberts as Harriet Tubman. That was an actual conversation of people, and one of the excuses is people don't know who Harriet Tubman is anyway. It's ridiculous. One can only hope that Julia would have said no if it comes to fruition. I share this because the idea seems that this would be unheard of now. And if you did, but we call it cryptface, when you cast somebody, especially in a disability-specific role, somebody without a disability. We're about the fringe and queer too, and sizism. We're about the fringe is about inclusion. So I highly recommend two things. Yes, if you have a part that's disability specific that you seek to cast an actor with that or same or similar disability, but also know, and I always share these stories, if you go on my Facebook page, any 1 or 2 days of the week, I have something about my nephews. There's something about my younger nephew there now. The reason is I'm a proud aunt. My younger nephew sang the Star Spangled Banner with the choir at the soccer game on Saturday, the LA Galaxy soccer game. That is really cool. One of the worst days of my life was the day my friend Daniel committed suicide. I'm about to celebrate my dad's 90th birthday. I'm sharing all these stories because it's interesting that my dad is 90 and I'm only 25. It's so cool. But I'm sharing these stories because none of those stories have anything to do with my disability. I'm a daughter who gets to celebrate luckily get to celebrate my dad being here for 90 years. I'm a proud aunt who can't believe her nephew got to do that. I'm a friend who still misses her friend Daniel so deeply, because he took his life. None of those have anything to do with my disability. They have to do with our human experiences, which have nothing to do with what size we are, who we choose to love, how we choose to identify, gender or whatever. We all have this common human experience, and I think the more you have the diversity of all of it telling those stories. This is what theater is about. This is celebrating our inclusion and finding the diversity, yet the common is the human experience that we all get to tell, but not all of our voices are always included. And this is a great way to do that.
Absolutely. Beautifully said, Diana.
Yeah.
So also opening the conversation to when you bring on new team members, because yes, having a diverse team around you really can expand the story that you're trying to tell in ways that you can never imagine. How do you open a conversation with these new team members about their access needs? Because like you said, Diana, no one knows somebody's access needs better than that person themselves. How do you start that conversation so that you can know that you're doing your best to make them feel welcome into the space that you're creating?
You need to create a space for safety, especially for people I think who have more invisible and non-apparent disabilities. Mine is very visible. I walk into the room, you see how I walk, you hear my voice. My more non-apparent are my depression and my anxiety. You don't see that, but it exists. Mental health challenges are oftentimes invisible, but yet there may be access needs there. So I think as the producer, as the director, you need to create the space, a safer space to have that conversation, because it may, but whether it's about a costume, whether it's about, on both sides, a designer who may need to have a different work schedule, whatever, because of a chronic illness. But you as the leader, it starts at the top. How do you create a safer space so that your team feels safe asking for what their access needs are?
I think those conversations happen right at the beginning, right as you're choosing who your team is, and in every way, it's a part of your expectations. And those are questions you need to ask. Do you have any needs that I should know about that are going to be helpful for you to bring your best to the show? As much as we want it to be amazing for the audience, we want it to be amazing for you. For example, I have these needs. Is there anything? It's about asking questions and being intentional.
I'd also say for myself, when I start things out, I always start by presenting my own specific needs, and with the hope that showing them that that we all are coming into the space as individuals, and we'll all have specific needs. And as a person in a leadership position, as the director or as the playwright, by being vulnerable in that way and saying that, hey, this is what it is, and you need to feel okay to be able to set boundaries and ask for what you need. So I think really showing that with to your cast can be very helpful.
And just to add one more thing, I often you may want to do that individually by having, individual meetings right at the top. And also there are things you may not think about. So it may be saying to the costume designer, hey, like for me, don't bring me high heel shoes if you want me to actually walk on stage. Please, because I'll fall, so it's things we may not think about, and that's where we have to get away from the one size fits all works for all. Sometimes with disabilities, even materials, but people with sensory, who have sensory, materials, wool, but probably you don't have wool in the summer, but just thinking about the things you may not think about. And I think when it comes to disability, there's something wheelchair or whatever, but there's there's so many other things other than what might you think about. And I think all those have to be part of the conversation as well.
Absolutely. And it's such, both of you kind of touched on this. It's an ongoing conversation that it's not something that happens once, but it's something that you have to lead with your own vulnerability, like Jeff said, and continue to have throughout the process as new things come up with wardrobe, with moving into a venue, with all of this stuff, that access needs can change over time and new things may pop up, or some things may be like, great, this is good, this is handled. So yeah, I want to move on to talk a little bit about content warning, because that can be something that brings up a lot of emotions for producers. Seeing that, what has your experience been with content warnings? Is this something that you frequently see out in theater, or is this something that's relatively a new practice?
Well, I will go ahead and start. I really don't think it's a new practice. I mean, I live in a very rural part of the country, and it's been something we've been talking about for at least the last 12 years or so. It really becomes apparent when a content warning is needed when you see somebody jump up from the audience and run out crying. And that is not something I think anybody ever wants to see. And I just saw it, I think 3 weeks ago, as an audience member, and I immediately went to the leadership of the conference I was at and said that we need to make sure that people know what they're getting into. As theater makers, we understand that almost all theater will have triggers of some kind. It's drama. There are triggers that are inherent in it. We don't want our audience to be traumatized. And by providing content warnings, we're not giving away our plot. We're not giving away the script in any way. We are protecting our audiences and honoring them as individuals who are coming to see this art that we're presenting for them. And I think that we owe that to the people who are coming to our shows.
Absolutely.
I really agree. I mean, I haven't, had to use that, but I get in movies they put age appropriate, the one woman show I did was called Happily Ever After, the 15 and over, because there was a mild, I didn't want my 9-year-old nephew coming to hear me talk about dildos. I hope everyone is in the audience. I hope the new kids, sorry, I just done a warning right there. Sorry kids, they're kids, but the thing is, your title may seem like, if you title, oh, merely revolving on the river, that may seem like a very harmless title, but if it's about, your an experience you had as a child that was very traumatic, it's important to do that, and it just protects everybody. And again, sorry for saying that word. I hope there weren't any kids listening. I should have done a content warning. Sorry about that.
Another thing to think about might be that you might no longer be sensitive to a topic that because you've done some work or you're at a different place, but it's a blind spot again. And so you need more than just your own eyes on your material. You need to double check that with some people you trust, other people who do this work, so that you are not missing something just because you aren't sensitive to a particular trigger.
Absolutely. And I want to point out that there are some resources for consultants if you want to hire someone to chat about this on our hollywoodfringe.org/accessibility, who would be happy to talk to you. But also, I think it is a thing of bringing people in from your circle and having that sort of peer recognition when we're doing these trauma-informed practices. So I want to talk about, as producers are putting more and more work into making their show accessible, how do then they reach out to network with communities that would be served and that their show is being made accessible for? How do they start those conversations and those connections?
Reach out to community. My show was called The Shape of Me, and it was really about living out loud in fat bodies. Sort of the journey from like hating oneself or being bullied or tortured to self-love and joy and sharing that. And part of our strategy was to reach out to fat community and share and do events with people and meet more people and find out how their needs could be met and how we can get them to see this show and be a part of an experience that was personal to that kind of group of people. And whatever anywhere where you've created a content warning for your show, there's an opportunity to reach out to a group of people who are often overlooked with the sharing of art and so many places. And I could get very upset very fast, very emotional. But I mean, if we all think of an area in our own lives where we have been sidelined or just not thought of, not included. So anywhere where we have a content warning, anywhere where there's a potential trigger, that is a point to reach out and say, we love you and we would love to share this work with you. How can we help you to have a great experience? How can we serve you to get you in the door to see this show that, I think where it could be a negative, it can actually be just an extraordinary gift to the people who have those triggers, who have those challenges. I think if we just approach it with a great deal of love and we're intentional, Jeffy said in the last little chunk that it's about protection and honor. Those are big ones. So if we choose the communities that we're talking about, we would like to serve with our work and say, we want you to see this. We want you to participate. How can we best serve you? That is going to honor and protect our audience and increase our audience. I mean, we all want people to see our shows and to be touched and to feel that they have been seen and connected with. I don't know if that made any sense or I went anywhere, but I just think if we reach out to people, if we do the work, I'll carry my 50 bricks, you carry your 50 bricks, and we could do this.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but I think you bring up a very good point. It's the research. I mean, if you're writing a play about the Civil War, you're going to do some research on the Civil War, right? You're a historian, you're going to research. If you're an actor, you do research, you're researching for your thing or whatever. Therefore, do that thing with your audience curation, it's the research and connecting.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love the Amanda talking about honoring your audience and using these almost as limitations as connecting points, or not limitations, but what you're trying to make more accessible as points of connection that you can use with your audience members to say, hey, we're doing the work. How can you be part of this conversation? Love that. So I have a couple more questions for y'all, but I also want to remind the people in our Zoom room here and also on our Facebook that we will be opening it up to questions very quickly here. So start thinking about what you want to ask this amazing, very insightful panel. So specifically with immersive shows, where there is audience interaction, this is something that we want to make sure that we're respecting our audiences and their boundaries, as well as our performers, and that we're giving audience members the chance to opt in and opt out of these interactions based on whatever access needs they have or just what they're feeling comfortable with. How do we go about building into those practices into our production?
Well, I mean, communicating with the audience beforehand, whether that's in the material that they get before they come to the show, on material that's posted outside of the venue, and then additionally in the pre-show announcement, letting them know that there's going to be audience interaction. Telling them, or maybe having seats set aside for the group that is really excited about being interacted with, maybe is the way to go, so that we don't inadvertently engage with people who would rather not be, or
communication, over communicate.
Yes.
One of the things that I love specific to Fringe is the sending out an email to your ticket holders the day before, the morning of, with parking information, all of the things that they're going to need to know. That's another point. It should already be on your show page if you're having interaction, so they can, be prepared. It can also say there, hey, email us in advance if you don't want to. In that email that you send out, you can remind people, hey, this is interactive, and please let us know. We have no problem leaving you alone to enjoy other people interacting. But that's an amazing tool that Fringe provides, that ability to communicate with your ticket holders in advance. And also right before your show, you've got whatever your load-in time is with your space. It's going to be short, probably 15 minutes. There might be someone there at the door, and whether it's you, a member of your team, they can be communicating with that as people are checking in to get their tickets. Just remind them, and if you have a place where they should go if they don't want to participate, or if they're really into it, they should move towards the front center, whatever it is. But it's just a matter, for me, of communication. A great over communicate. I'd rather hear it 17 times than once and have missed it. So that's my 2 cents.
And I also think it's important to communicate that to your artists and actors on stage, right? Like when you ask, if to be sensitive to what those warnings are. Tell them that they don't want to go on stage, move on. So not only communicating to the audience, but also communicating ways to ask that question for your artist in a way that's sensitive. who is open to coming up on stage right now? That's right. If you that who is open, please, if you are open to coming up and being part of this immersive experience, please raise your hands. You don't have to, but those of you who are open, you know, I think the wording of that language is also equally important to sound inclusive, but not triggering. Saying everyone we're gonna do this, but who is open to this? You know, those are all the things to consider.
Absolutely.
I would also add that working with your actors, or if you're the actor yourself, working with, I mean, we're in a really great age right now where we've got intimacy coordinators and we've got people who are actually training in how to be, how to work with intimacy on stage and with casts. Even if somebody sits in the splash zone in your show and they're indicating that they want to be involved, it shouldn't give us just carte blanche to just go sit on their lap or put something on their head or touch them in some way. We really need to make sure that we're checking in with them. Is it okay if I do this? May I do this? Would you be okay if I asked you a question about such and such? It's a way to say that, like, I respect you. I'm so happy that you're being engaged, but let me continue to make sure that I'm not like breaking the boundaries in our little, improv conversation or interaction that we're having here. Yeah.
And that might be part of your content warning too, but also, I think to Jeff's point, also be thinking of the immersive interaction serve the show? What is your why? Is it to shock the audience, or is it because it really serves the show for you to have this? Because there's a lot of things that are done that, they're really, going into someone's lap or whatever. I mean, those are the experience. But what is your why for having the immersion? And I'm not saying that immersion isn't cool, like, it can be wonderful, but make sure your why is because it really serves the show, or that because you really just want to shock the audience for shock's sake, which, I'm not saying what's a good or bad. I'm just saying I think it's really important to know what your why is.
Absolutely. And leading with consent and communication. So important. I want to hold some space now if there's anyone in our Zoom room that has any questions, or if Carly, if there's anyone in the chat. Or Lois, I don't know who's moderating the Facebook chat. Hi, Kevin.
It's Carly. I'm gonna pop in here too, so I can ask questions that I might have.
Did you have a question?
Not yet. Let's wait for the audience.
You're good. Yeah, Rebecca.
Okay, I think I know the answer. I doubt there's any kind of law that says that if they have traditional theater seats, that they should allow us to bring in chairs. Is there, I mean, I'm considering the theater that has traditional seats, and I don't like the fact that that would be an issue for anybody. So is there anything to back me when I ask the theater, can I have a bench for accessibility?
That's a lovely conversation to have with your venue, and it does really depend venue to venue what their stipulations are. But just speaking across the board, yeah, bench style seating, very accessible and very much something that you should be looking into. I don't know where Amber went, but Jeff and Diana, do you have anything to chime in on that?
Yeah, I mean, even accessible is really broad. Because bench style seating might be accessible for size inclusion, but it may not be accessible for someone who has some type of mobility disability. So I think it's, again, not one thing is going to
Yeah.
fit all. So the more you can do, the better.
Yeah, I happen to know a comedian who is actually, he is approaching all the different comedy venues because he can't get on everybody's stage. So yeah, it's a real issue.
It really is, and it's one that we're trying to find creative solutions for within Fringe shows. And I know, Jeff, you're rather new to the festival, but I would love to hear, Diana and Jeff, from your experience, what are creative ways that you've seen people overcome limitations in certain venues or spaces in terms of accessibility and making their shows accessible?
Well, I think too often we've had to rely on the kindness of strangers to work with poorly designed theaters to help people get into positions where they could actually see and enjoy the show, which is not ideal at all, especially when you're working in old buildings that are not up to code.
Yeah, I'll be really honest. That's a very difficult question for me to answer, and that's just being really honest. When I did my one-person show, I did it at the LBGT, the Gay Lesbian Center, because it was, and I wound up having to go do it all at the virtual show. But that's one of the reasons I picked it, because I went and looked at a lot of spaces, and even though it was a solo show with the audience, I recommend that if you know someone who's a wheelchair user, for example, take them with you to the venue you're about to sit. If you know someone who, this is the thing of building your community. One out of 4 people have some type of disability. So I'm sure there are a lot of people who know people who have disabilities. But one thing is to ask. Because no one person has all the answers. I can speak to more to mobility disabilities. I walk, but I can speak to more mobility disabilities. I don't feel comfortable speaking for the deaf community or for people who have more sensory issues, because I don't. And so we have such a big and intersectional community that it's really important to keep that in mind too. But accessibility has always been an issue for me, and it's really hard to say what's worked well, because it's been a bit of a challenge, to be honest.
Well, I think you're bringing up something that's true for the producers of being honest with your audiences. And that's something that's difficult sometimes when you're like, I don't have all the solutions, but I would love to be in conversation to find a solution.
That's just the honesty, right? It's like, we're not going to solve racism any of these in a day or a year. Because the problem that this is before, and you put the guy here. The important thing is we're starting to have the conversation, and that's the first step, is wanting to have the conversation. The first step is, when you create your budget, thinking about accessibility when you're creating your budget. When I did my budget for my show, I thought about accessibility needs as part of my budget. So I think if we start to incorporate, I'm going to find an accessible space, if we start that at the beginning, to the best of our ability, realizing that we still deal with limitations because we're going into pre-existing spaces.
Absolutely, but remaining honest about it. Yeah,
Well-
Kevin. Oh yeah, no, Amanda. Chime in first.
I was just going to say that I don't know what the question was exactly, but honesty is huge. And I think as we're having these discussions, I think it's important to, just as a standard, to assume that people have the best intentions and that we don't know what we don't know. And I know for me as a fat person, I have to educate even the people who love me most about, like, we can't just go wherever to eat. I need to make sure that there's seating available to me. And it's the same as we're creating our shows and our experiences for people. The more that we can ask questions, and if people are genuinely ignorant to something, if they're not approaching it as just a jerk, it's an opportunity to say, hey, here's something maybe you didn't know, and let me offer this as some information so that you can have a more complete picture and make better choices for yourself and the people around you, strangers and loved ones alike.
And as someone who deals a lot with this accessibility work, you are not the first person to be asking these questions. So once you've had that moment of, oh, okay, this is something I need to consider, do your research. Like, I don't remember I think Diana might have said this before, do your research. These answers to a lot of these minute questions that you have can be found out there by other theater makers or people in other industries who are working to make the world a more accessible place.
And really, everything's in process. I mean, when I was growing up, your pronouns were just assumed, right? We got our first Mother's Day when I was a kid. Things are very different now. We don't celebrate Columbus Day for obvious reasons, but we went, I used to sit that for my grandparents were colored, my parents were Negro, and I am Black. All right, that's like when my grandparents, it was perfectly okay for my grandparents to be colored, for my parents to be Negro, their kids are Black, right? But because there's been a progression, same with language, we learn, we progress, we learn and we progress. And I think asking in a loving way is a great way to know too. I remember having a wonderful conversation with my friend Krista, who's a beautiful transgendered woman. I wanted to know her experience. So I asked her, and now I know, and I learned so much, but I learned because I asked, because I wanted to know, and she shared something with me that made me go, oh, and it just opened me to say, oh, I get that, I understand that, right? Because of a man that when I did my show, one of the things I didn't think about was seating. Now I always will. And that is this, right? Because I've had the conversation with the man that I go, oh yes. As someone who does a disability, I need to be thinking of all types. It's always about opening your mind, learning something new, then what you do with that information. Do you take it in or do you say, well, it doesn't matter. So it's once you receive the information, what are you going to do with it? Right? Are you going to, does it make you more aware? That's what hopefully it will do,
Hopefully, it makes me hopeful for the future of accessibility. Kevin.
Yeah, I think this is a really cool segue into the kind of less of a question, more of like a topic about like visibility and how incorporating these practices, like I do solo theater and I've had ASL interpreters at multiple shows where like there's not even anybody deaf or hard of hearing in the audience, but just having that available shows that this is important, or having early access seating, even if you don't have anybody that's utilizing it. Let's talk about that, because I think that that's how we make the change that we're talking about here. What is your opinions on it? That wasn't really a question, but I want to talk about it because I think that it's so important to talk about, like what is the impact here? Diana, you had said that it's a $500 billion industry, but if we're not making these things accessible from the jump, like, yeah.
I think that, to your point, Kevin, I had ASL interpretation at all my shows. I still don't know, because I never said how much. If I had that funding, I had other description available, because I think the more we normalize these, the more we normalize accessibility. I know I sometimes even at home will have audio description on my TV, on my smart TV, not because I personally need it, because I'm getting used to it too. I think, again, saying my pronouns during a land acknowledgement is now very normalized for me. I just do it normal, because it's normalized. So the more we do it, the more it just becomes a normalized part of what we do.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. The more we do it, the more it's done, and nobody questions it. Once it becomes a thing, just like what you just said, Diana, about using our pronouns. I mean, it's sometimes we're within a group of people where it's not necessary. We know at this point these people's pronouns, but we put them there because it helps everyone to feel more comfortable, more welcome. When there's a new person, there's not a question. It's not like, I wonder. It's, here you go. Here's your opportunity to do what is comfortable for you. It's just about making people feel honored and respected and protected.
Yeah, if I can stand up, I get a little bit of a cramp. So keep going, sorry.
Yeah, it's a practice. It's something that we need to continually practice.
Rebecca asked in the audience, Kevin, how much it is to have an ASL interpreter for a show. And since you've done that for your shows multiple times, do you have some feedback?
Yes, it depends. I use pro bono ASL. They're not free, but they're owned by a person of color, a woman of color. That was also important for me for my show. Sometimes they do work with you. This is a skill. As you see, I love the ASL interpreters. It's a skill. So again, it's something you need to do your research and put into your budget. The same way when you do your production budget, if you know you're doing 3 shows, maybe 1 show, if they sound interpreted, and you put that in your budget. So again, it's doing your research. Guys, I am gonna stand up because I'm getting a big cramp, but I'm okay. I just need to walk around a bit. So I'm still with you.
Thanks for letting us know. I kind of want to segue that into a question that I have about when these fringe shows are looking at their budgets and looking at realistically what they can do. A lot of people are going to look at all of this and go, oh my gosh, I cannot do everything. How do you start to think through what picking realistic things and practices that you can put into effect for your shows and how to prioritize those, so to speak?
I think you start by looking at your show, who you're trying to reach, and and your budget, and prioritize doing as much as you can, being as effective as you can, and then having a great deal of grace for yourself, knowing that, you know, we're producing on a limited budget, and often it's experimental, or we're just like doing it for the first time. We're little baby theater producers in LA. Like, I think most of our audiences are going to realize that there are limitations, but the efforts matter. For me, I just had to look at what my script is, who I most need to protect based on this material, and make that the starting point, and then grab as much more that I can and get, you know, learn and see, okay, well, this is an easy way where I can make it safer and more wonderful for my audience. But again, just a great deal of grace.
Absolutely.
I think another thing is, remember Fringe? So you don't, you know, if it's, for example, a show about guys on a boat, you don't have to have an actual boat. You don't have to spend $800 to build a boat. You know, the thing about Fringe is you can do it in a black box and say you're on a boat and let your actors tell the story. But think you're creating it, you know. And to Amanda's point, you do. The reason I had what I had was I had the support. So you may also want to say, when you're doing your fundraising, or maybe doing a GoFundMe campaign, or, you know, does your Aunt Martha have money to, hey, would you be willing to donate $100 so I can have an ASL interpreter at this show? So again, is how be creative, you know. I mean, there are ways, but again, you know, with this chat, you don't, because you're only gonna have to have 15-20 minutes, and that's a lot of that. How is it gonna go in and out of a theater in 15-20 minutes, right? It really is. Both are big. So again, if what is your show? How can you make it work so they're artistically satisfying, economically feasible, and allow you to share your gifts with the biggest audience?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's about expanding the reach. Yeah, Kevin.
I have a casting question. So like, I know like when I apply for jobs, which I don't apply for jobs often anymore because I work here and I love the Hollywood Fringe, but like, you know how they say like, this is an equal opportunity for people of like disability, race, creed, all of those types of things. Is there merit to because we talked a little bit about like how being you know, having a disability and then like that not being your story, right? Like your brother, your sister, your mother. How do we talking about visibility and like making, like normalizing these things we're talking about? How can we start to maybe invite people to cast in a way that's equitable in terms of disability? Does that make sense as a question?
It's breaking thousands of years of bad habits. And I think that it starts with us making those casting choices and getting away from I'm in a Hollywood type that seems to end up in lead roles. And I don't mean you when I say Hollywood. We make those choices. We talk to our producer friends and we tell them to make those choices. We put it in our scripts that that diversity needs to be a primary focus in the casting of the show. As playwrights, as producers, we make it a priority. And then we also go to those people who we used to work with, college professors or whatever, and we say, stop doing this terrible thing that you're doing and start casting, a diverse group of people in your shows. But, we start asking those questions, and we start doing it ourselves.
And it only happens on purpose.
Yes.
Oh,
Mhm.
I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it
Intentionally.
can't be obvious. It can't always just be obvious. So you cast the fat lady as the romantic lead. It's not like, oh, here it says we have someone who's deaf. Who cares? Make the romantic lead the deaf person. It doesn't need to be written in a specific way for us to cast someone who's not the to this point obvious or typical choice on purpose.
And again, to the wonderful point, the certain type of casting we don't do anymore. Like we would not do blackface anymore. We wouldn't do that. So why should we do other things that are equally like clickbait? Disability of this experience is not in the arts. It's been like, oh, I'm stretching myself. I'm, that's been at such a practice. But there are other practices in the theater that have been accepted at one time, but are no longer. And to a man's beautiful point, you do it on purpose and you say, I'm doing this on purpose and I'm not going to do this anymore. How do you stop casting non-disabled actors and the specific roles? You just don't do it. But simple. How do you do more diverse casting and cast Amanda as the romantic lead because she's beautiful and amazing? You cast Amanda because she's a freaking good actress. And that's what you do. And this is not rocket science. You don't need to be
And you, Diana, you're a fucking amazing actor. Sorry for my language. Oh my God. Like, your reel is legit. Like,
yeah,
damn.
I mean, there are things that are astrophysics really hard. There are things that are hard to figure out, like astrophysicism. I can't even say the word. This is not. You just say, oh, Amanda's awesome. I want her in my show. Give her the job.
Easy.
That's very easy. Move on to the next. That's the question.
I fully support giving Amanda the job.
That's it.
My gosh, incredible. I want to give one more opportunity for any of the people in the room or any of the people on our Facebook live who would like to chime in and ask any questions of this panel. But y'all, I'm really inspired, and I'm sure our participants are, to do this work to reach out to these communities and let people know that they are welcome and that they are creating a welcome spaces for their audiences of all backgrounds, all abilities across the boards, from the practices they're doing within their rehearsal rooms to the practices they're doing front of house for audience members. So I want to leave with one last question, which is any final bits of advice on creating tools for creating that really welcoming environment for everyone, so that we can all leave with this beautiful feeling of community that theater should provide us with.
Well, if you're looking to cast the older Black woman with a disability, with your fun, no, seriously, guys. We do this because we love it, not necessarily because of the money. Right? This is not to become a millionaire, although it would really be nice. But, we, especially in LA, there's the film industry, there's the Oscars. That's how cool. But we're all here because we really love creating theater. the magic of live theater. So just create your theater, but create an environment where more people can participate and be part of the storytelling. That's what I would like to say.
That's almost exactly what I want to say. This might feel a little overwhelming with all of the options and ways and people to include, and how do I get done as much as possible, and I have no money, and like, take a deep breath and remember that this is all about love. And if you just start there and do the best you can, learn and grow where you can, stretch a little bit, and enjoy the process. And start with what you can do. Start with a land acknowledgement, start with some pronouns, make sure there's a sturdy armless chair for your fat friend who you're going to hire for your show, who's available for Fringe 23. Love, wrap it all in love, and have, again, grace and kindness for yourself. And using Jeff's words from earlier, let's make it about protection, about honor, about respect, and love. And it's all going to work out. You're going to do the best you can, and you're going to learn. And then the next time you have a chance, you're going to do it even a little bit better.
And I would just add, make sure that you're checking what you're writing and checking what you're performing, and really make sure that you aren't using characters with disabilities in a harmful or toxic way. I'm surprised at how often I run into scripts where people living with disabilities end up being the butt of the joke, or it's obviously not researched to the full extent that it should be, and it's just a very one-dimensional presentation of a character that doesn't have a full life. So I think do your due diligence when you're writing, and honor those characters, and have a good time. Tell the story. Yeah.
And you don't need a vote.
You don't need a vote.
You
Oh my
don't need
gosh.
a vote.
Yeah, Dana, we're putting that on the Fringe website, actually.
Okay.
That's our new slogan.
You don't need a vote to do your show.
Diana, Jeff, Amanda, thank you so much for joining this accessibility panel. It means the world to us. Again, all of our resources are available on hollywoodfringe.org/accessibility. And the Fringe will support you as much as we can to make your show as accessible as possible. So you can always reach out to support@hollywoodfringe.org if you have questions. And Kevin, any final announcements?
Yeah, I would just say come check out the next marketing and ticketing panel that will be happening on March 29th. No, it's happening at the end of the month. That is office hours starting. So it's happening on March 26th is the ticketing and marketing panel. March 29th is the beginning of our weekly office hours. Come out, celebrate. These wonderful folks will be here, minus Jeff. Unless, Jeff, you want to fly out for a Wednesday, we'd be glad to have you. And get ready to Fringe on.
Beautiful.
Peace
Thank
out.
you everyone for joining us.
Bye.
Thank y'all. Wow.